All right, so we're talking extrusion machine operator interviews today, and we're going to use RoleCatcher's guides to help you nail it. We're going to figure out not just what this job is, but how to answer the tough questions they're going to ask you.
Yeah, it's really interesting how RoleCatcher goes beyond just information and gives you real strategies you can use. We'll be looking closely at some of those sample interview questions, and I'll share some advice to help you create answers that really stand out.
Absolutely. It's like bringing a secret weapon to the interview. But before we get too tactical, let's take a step back. Imagine someone's listening to this and thinking, okay, extrusion, is that like Play-Doh, but in a giant factory?
Not exactly, but you're kind of right about the shaping part. Think about things like molten metal plastics, even food sometimes, all being pushed through a specially shaped hole to make a continuous form. Pipes, tubing, window frames, a lot of things are made that way.
The career guide mentions that advancements in automation are changing things up. What does that mean for someone going into this interview?
It means you can't just be someone who pushes buttons. Interviewers are going to want to know how comfortable you are with computers, with troubleshooting those automated systems, that kind of thing. It's not like those old factories you might have seen.
Okay, that's a great point to remember as we look at these interview questions. And speaking of questions, RoleCatcher's interview guide has 10 examples. Let's start with a common one. What is your experience operating extrusion machines? It seems pretty basic, but I bet there's more to it than listing the machines you've used, right?
Right, you have to paint a picture of your skills. Did you just help with basic things, or were you running whole production batches by yourself? What materials did you use? Were there any problems you had to solve? The more specific you are, the more believable you sound.
So instead of saying, I've operated Machine X for 2 years, you'd say, for 2 years, I was responsible for setting up and running Machine X to make high-grade PVC piping for a big construction project. I even had to fix a problem with the pressure during a really important production run, and I did it by...
Exactly. That's the kind of detail that makes you stand out. And by the way, RoleCatcher's AI can look at your answers and give you feedback based on specific job descriptions. It's really amazing.
We'll definitely talk more about that AI later, but first, another question. Tell me about a time you had a challenge while using an extrusion machine. How did you handle it? It sounds like they want a story about you being a problem-solving hero.
You could say that. They want to see how you think. Did you freak out? Did you just try random things until something worked? Or were you systematic about it? Explain the steps you took from when you first saw the problem to when you tested solutions and finally fixed it.
So if the temperature gauge went crazy, you'd say, first I isolated the problem area to prevent damage. Then I checked the machine's manual and compared the error code to what the troubleshooting section said. I tested the thermocouple and saw it was broken, so I put in a new one and recalibrated the system.
Perfect. That shows you don't just react. You're methodical. Now, let's say the interviewer follows up with, what are some problems you've often had with extrusion machines? And how did you solve them? This is where you can really show off what you know.
So instead of just listing problems, you'd talk about the solutions and your part in finding them. Almost like one problem that kept happening was the material wasn't feeding consistently because the pellets were different sizes. I noticed this and suggested we change the settings on the hopper gate. That made things a lot more consistent.
Exactly. You're not just saying what the problem was. You're showing that you're proactive at problem solving. This is where RoleCatcher's AI can be a big help. It can look at what you say and suggest ways to make it stronger so you can be sure you're using the right words and phrases that employers want to see.
Okay, on to question 3. How do you make sure the extrusion machine is making things that meet quality standards? This seems like you could easily say the wrong thing. You don't want to sound like you don't care about quality, right?
Absolutely. Quality control is a big deal in manufacturing. Here's your chance to show you understand about inspections, measurements, and sticking to specifications. Talk about the tools you use, calipers, gauges, whatever's relevant, and how you keep track of everything.
So instead of saying, I just make sure it looks okay, you'd say I use a digital micrometer to measure how thick the pipe is in different places, and I compare those measurements to what the blueprints say. If anything's off, I write it down and report it immediately. That way we're always meeting the required standards.
Exactly. That shows you're not just eyeballing it. You're following a careful process.
Yeah.
And imagine they ask, have you ever found a quality problem with an extruded product? What did you do? Now you can show how careful you are and how much you care about making great products.
This is really helpful. Okay, next question. How do you maintain and clean extrusion machines? Honestly, that doesn't sound too exciting, but I guess it's important.
It's super important. Regular maintenance keeps those machines running smoothly and prevents expensive breakdowns. Talk about your experience with lubrication cleaning procedures, replacing worn parts. Again, specifics are key.
So instead of I clean stuff, you say I follow a strict maintenance schedule. It includes things like lubricating moving parts with the grease the manufacturer recommends, cleaning cooling fins so the heat can escape properly, and visually checking parts for wear and tear. Also write down any parts that need replacing so we can fix them on time.
Perfect. That shows you're proactive and know how to keep things running smoothly. Now imagine the interviewer asks, describe a time you had to do an unexpected repair on an extrusion machine. What did you do? This shows you can handle pressure and think on your feet.
So if a heating element suddenly died, you'd say, I immediately turned off that section so it wouldn't damage anything. Then I checked the troubleshooting guide and found the bad element. I swapped it out with a new one, making sure the wiring was correct. Then I recalibrated the temperature controls and started things up again with very little downtime.
Exactly. You've shown that you know what you're doing and that you're quick and take initiative. And again, RoleCatcher's AI can give you feedback on how to tailor your answers to the specific job you want.
This AI is starting to sound like a must-have. Okay, next question. How do you make sure the extrusion machine is running safely? Safety is obviously the top priority, but how do you answer this without sounding like you're reading from a rulebook?
You have to show that you're truly committed to safety, not just checking boxes. Talk about always wearing your PPE, doing checks before you start, knowing what to do in an emergency, all those things that show you take safety seriously.
So instead of just I follow all the rules, you'd say something like, before I start the machine, I always do a thorough visual inspection. I look for loose wires, leaks, or anything else that could be dangerous. I always wear the right safety gear like safety glasses, gloves, and hearing protection. And I know how to shut down the machine in an emergency so I can react quickly and safely.
Perfect. That shows you understand safety as part of your job, not just an extra thing. Now imagine this follow-up. Have you ever seen someone doing something unsafe at work? How did you handle it? This lets you show how proactive you are about safety and how willing you are to speak up.
All right, we've covered 5 questions already. Before we get into the next group, let's change gears for a second. This career guide talks about 3 stages for extrusion machine operators: entry-level, junior, and senior. Why is that important for someone getting ready for their first interview?
It helps you see where your career could go and understand what skills you need to move up. Even if you're applying for an entry-level job, showing that you're thinking ahead shows ambition and that you're serious about your career.
So you're not just looking for any job, you're thinking about building a career. That's smart. Okay, back to the questions. We'll tackle the last 5 in our next segment, along with more insights from the career guide and a deeper look at RoleCatcher's AI features. Stay tuned.
RoleCatcher makes those career stages so clear. You can see exactly what they expect you to know and do at each level. It's like a roadmap for your career.
Okay, so say our listener is going for that entry-level extrusion machine operator job. What are some key things from the career guide they should remember during the interview?
At the entry level, it's all about showing you've got the basics down. You need to show you understand how extrusion works, can follow directions, and are ready to learn and grow.
So even if you don't have a ton of experience, you can still impress them by being enthusiastic and willing to learn.
Exactly. Employers want people who are reliable, eager to help, and have a positive attitude. And that goes back to those interview questions. Your answers should show those qualities.
All right, let's get back to the questions. We've done 5, so let's go to number 6. How do you prioritize tasks when you're running an extrusion machine? That seems like a sneaky way to ask about time management.
It's about showing you're organized and can handle lots of things at once. The interviewer wants to see that you can think critically, figure out which tasks are urgent, and make good decisions when things are hectic.
So it's not just about saying, I do whatever my boss tells me to do.
Right, following orders is important, but this question lets you show you can take initiative and manage your own work.
So how should you answer it?
Start by talking about how you usually prioritize things. Do you make lists? Do you have a system? Then give a real example of a time you had to prioritize tasks while using an extrusion machine.
For example, you could say, when I start my shift, I always check the production schedule and figure out which orders are most urgent. If there's a rush order, I'll set up the machine for that first. Then I'll do the regular tasks like loading material and checking quality while keeping an eye on how production is going overall.
Exactly. That's a great example. It shows you understand deadlines and can think strategically about using your time and resources.
Now, what if they ask a follow-up question, like, describe a time when you had to change your priorities because of a surprise problem. How did you deal with it?
Now's your time to really shine. Show them you're adaptable and a good problem solver. Be ready with a specific example that shows you can think on your feet, reassess, and adjust.
Let's say a die gets clogged during a run. That would definitely mess up your plan.
For sure, you could say something like, I stopped production right away so nothing got damaged. Then I followed the steps for unclogging the die. That meant taking the die out, safely clearing it, and cleaning it well. While that was happening, I let my supervisor know about the delay and changed the production schedule to minimize downtime.
That shows you're not just reacting. You're taking control and finding solutions.
Exactly. And that's what employers want. Don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can make your answers even better. You can practice what you're going to say and get feedback on how to tailor it to the specific job description.
Okay, on to question number 7. How do you deal with unexpected downtime or production delays? That seems especially important in a fast-paced environment like manufacturing.
It definitely is. Downtime costs money and causes problems, so they want to know you can handle those situations and get things running again quickly.
How should you answer this one?
First, say that you stay calm and focused when things go wrong. Then describe how you troubleshoot, communicate with the right people, and put solutions into action.
For example, you could say, if a machine breaks down, I try to figure out what's wrong right away. If I can fix it myself, I do, following all the safety rules. If not, I tell my supervisor and the maintenance team. I give them a clear explanation of the problem. While they're working on it, I do any tasks that don't need that machine, like cleaning, organizing, or getting materials ready for the next run.
Excellent. That shows you're proactive and looking for solutions. You're not just sitting around waiting for someone else to fix it.
What about follow-up questions?
They might ask something like, tell me about a time you dealt with a major production delay. What did you do to minimize the disruption?
This is where you show you're good at solving problems and can work under pressure.
Exactly. Be ready to give a detailed account of what happened, what you did, and the outcome. Focus on what you did to fix the problem and get things back on track.
What if there's a power outage and the whole production line shuts down? That would be a big disruption.
Absolutely. You could talk about how you made sure everyone was safe first, then how you worked with your supervisor to assess the situation, talk to the maintenance team, and make a plan to restart the line safely and efficiently once the power came back on. You could even say you used the downtime to review safety procedures or organize things, showing that you're always productive.
That's a great example.
Oh.
Okay, let's go to question number 8. How do you make sure the extrusion machine is calibrated correctly? This one sounds pretty technical.
It is. Calibration is super important to make sure the machine makes products that meet the specs. You need to show you understand how calibration works, the tools involved, and why accuracy is so important.
So how should you answer this?
Start by explaining why calibration matters and how it affects the final product. Then talk about the steps involved in calibrating an extrusion machine. Highlight the tools you use and how precise you have to be.
For example, you could say calibration is crucial for making sure the product is the right size and shape consistently. I use a digital micrometer to measure the extrudate in different spots and compare it to the blueprints. If I need to make changes, I do it carefully following the manufacturer's instructions, and I write down all the changes in the logbook.
That's perfect. It shows you're detail-oriented and dedicated to keeping the machine accurate.
And what about follow-up questions?
The interviewer might ask something like, have you ever had to troubleshoot a calibration problem? How did you figure out what was wrong and fix it?
This is a great chance to show off your problem-solving skills and deep knowledge of the extrusion process.
Exactly. Be ready to explain how you diagnosed the problem, tested possible solutions, and made sure the machine was properly calibrated.
Say you see that the product is constantly thicker than it should be. How would you tackle that?
You could explain that you double-checked your measurements to make sure it wasn't your mistake. Then you could talk about how you used the machine's manual and troubleshooting guide to find possible causes, like a worn die or a problem with the temperature controls. You could walk them through how you systematically tested and eliminated those possibilities until you found the root cause and fixed it.
That shows you're methodical and analytical.
Exactly. And remember, RoleCatcher's AI can give you great feedback on how to structure your answers and highlight the skills employers really want.
Okay, question number 9. How do you make sure the extrusion machine is running efficiently? This one sounds like it's all about getting the best performance.
Right. Efficiency is key in any factory. They want to know you understand what affects efficiency and that you're proactive about finding and fixing problems that could slow things down.
So how should you answer this one?
Start by explaining why efficiency is important and how it impacts the overall productivity of the operation. Then talk about the steps you take to watch the machine's performance, find bottlenecks, and improve the process.
For instance, you could say, I'm always monitoring the machine's key performance indicators, like how much it's producing and how long each cycle takes. I compare those to the benchmarks. If I see something off or a trend that suggests we're not being efficient, I investigate the cause and look for solutions. That might mean adjusting machine settings, optimizing material flow, or suggesting changes to the whole production process.
That's great. It shows you're not just an operator, you're a problem solver, always trying to make things better.
What are follow-up questions?
They might ask, describe a time you made a process improvement that really boosted efficiency. What were the results?
This lets you show your initiative and how you make a positive impact.
Exactly. Be ready to give a detailed account of the improvement you made, the challenges, and the good outcomes.
Let's say you notice the material feeding system is causing delays. How could you turn that into a process improvement?
You could say you looked at the material flow, found a bottleneck in the hopper system, and suggested a change to the feeding mechanism. You could explain how you tested the solution, measured the results, and recorded the efficiency improvements, like less downtime or more output.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
It shows you're not just pointing out problems, you're taking charge and finding solutions.
exactly. And that's something employers value a lot.
Okay, we're down to the last question for this segment. How do you make sure the machine is making products that meet customer requirements? This seems super important, especially with so much competition these days.
It is. Customer satisfaction is everything. Employers want to know you understand how important it is to meet customer specs, and that you're careful to make sure the final product is what they expect.
So how do you answer this?
Start by emphasizing how important it is to carefully check customer orders, make sure the specifications are right, and do thorough quality checks. Then describe the steps you take to be accurate and follow the rules.
For example, you could say, before I start a new production run, I carefully read the customer's order form. I pay close attention to all the details like dimensions, tolerances, material type, color, and any special instructions. Then, I double-check the machine settings and raw materials to make sure they match the order. Throughout production, I regularly check the quality using different tools and inspection methods to verify the product meets the standards.
Excellent. That shows a careful and customer-focused approach.
What about follow-up questions?
They might ask something like, have you ever dealt with a situation where a customer wasn't happy with a product? How did you handle it?
This is a great chance to show off your communication skills and how well you can resolve customer issues.
You got it.
Wow.
Be ready to describe the situation, the steps you took to understand their concerns, and what you did to fix the problem and make them happy.
What if a customer says a batch of extruded tubing has inconsistent wall thickness? How would you handle that?
You could start by saying you understand their frustration and that you'll do everything you can to fix it. Then you could talk about how you investigated the problem, went back through the process, looked at the production logs, and did thorough quality checks on the bad batch. If you found a mistake in the production process, you could explain how you fixed it and put measures in place to prevent it from happening again. You could also mention how you kept the customer updated the whole time, making sure they were happy with the solution.
That shows you're proactive and customer-focused when it comes to problem solving.
Exactly. And it proves you can handle tough situations professionally and always try to make the customer happy.
We've covered 9 of the 10 sample interview questions from RoleCatcher's guide. Before we get to the last one, let's go back to the career guide. We talked about the entry-level stage earlier. What about the junior and senior extrusion machine operator levels? What should people keep in mind as they move up in their careers?
When you go from entry level to junior, you'll have more responsibility and have to be more independent. You'll need to show that you can operate the machine well, troubleshoot common problems, and help keep a safe and efficient work environment.
So it's not just about technical skills, it's also about soft skills, like teamwork, communication, and problem solving.
Exactly. And when you reach the senior level, you'll be expected to be a leader, mentoring junior operators, training new hires, and maybe even supervising a team. You'll also be involved in improving processes, making production more efficient, and making sure we meet safety and quality standards.
So you're always learning. You're always adding to your skills and knowledge as you move up.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to stay updated on industry trends. Manufacturing is always changing with new technologies and techniques all the time.
Speaking of new technologies, let's talk about RoleCatcher's AI features again. They can help you prep for interviews and tailor your resume to specific jobs. How does this AI magic work?
It's amazing. RoleCatcher's AI looks at the job description you want and figures out the key skills and keywords the employers are looking for. Then it suggests ways to rewrite your resume to match those requirements. That increases your chances of getting noticed by recruiters and those applicant tracking systems, ATS, that lots of companies use.
So it's like having a career coach helping you write the perfect resume.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of figuring out what they want to see and helps you show off your skills and experience in the best way possible.
We'll take a closer look at RoleCatcher's AI features in our next segment, along with tackling that last interview question and wrapping up this deep dive with some key takeaways. Stay tuned. All right, we're back and ready for that last interview question from RoleCatcher's Guide. But before we do, I'm still thinking about those career stages. It's pretty amazing to see how much you can grow in this field.
Yeah, starting as an entry-level operator and working your way up to senior level, even leading a team. It really shows how valuable experience and learning are in this industry.
Speaking of learning, we talked about RoleCatcher's AI and how it can help with your resume. But what about when they ask you about skills you haven't quite mastered yet? Like, what if they ask about a specific type of extrusion machine you haven't used?
That's a good point. Honesty is key. You can say you haven't worked with that exact model, but highlight that you're willing to learn and can adapt to new technology quickly. You can even mention your experience with similar machines and the skills you've learned that would transfer over.
So instead of, I don't know that one,
Yeah.
you could say something like, well, I haven't used that specific model. I understand the basic principles. And I'm a fast learner. I'm sure I could get up to speed quickly with the right training.
Exactly. You can even make it a positive by saying you're excited to learn new things and expand your skill set. Employers like people who want to grow and adapt.
That's great advice. Okay, ready for that last question? This is a big one. What are your salary expectations for this role? This one always feels tricky. How do you answer without selling yourself short or asking for too much?
Do your research and know what you're worth. Before the interview, look up the typical salary range for extrusion machine operators in your area with your level of experience. Websites like Glassdoor and Salary.com can help.
So you're not just guessing, you're basing it on real data.
Right. And during the interview, be flexible and open to negotiation depending on the responsibilities and benefits. You can say, based on my research and experience, I'm looking for a salary in the range of X to Y, but I'm open to talking more about it based on the total compensation package.
That sounds a lot more confident than just saying a number and hoping for the best.
Definitely. Remember, salary negotiation is a two-way street. They want the best candidate, and you want the best opportunity. Be ready to talk about your qualifications and why you deserve the salary you're asking for.
This has been a really helpful deep dive into the world of extrusion machine operators. We learned about the job itself, tackled those tough interview questions, and even discovered how RoleCatcher's AI can give you a real boost in your job search.
It's been great sharing these insights. I hope our listeners are feeling more prepared for their interviews.
Absolutely. To our listener, prepping for their interview, remember, you got this. Use what you learned today. Take advantage of those RoleCatcher resources, practice your answers, and go rock that interview.
Good luck. We're cheering for you.